Okay, and we are now live.
Call the Estimates Committee of January 18th, 2021 to order. And Mr. Deputy Clerk, please call the roll. Please note Councilor Van Tilburg sends his regrets.
Councillor Reaver,
Present.
Councillor Utley,
Present.
Councillor Antosky,
Here.
Councillor Vanderstelt,
Yep. Here.
Councillor Martin,
Here.
Councillor Wall,
Present.
Councillor Sless,
Present.
Councillor McCreary,
Yep. Here.
Mayor Davis,
Present.
and Councillor Carpenter.
Present. Thank you. Members of the committee, just a few reminders. I know that you all know this, but all motions must be moved and seconded. Each speaking opportunity is for members is 3 minutes. There are no limit on the number of speaking opportunities you may speak on one item. Is there any declarations of conflict of interest on the item before us tonight? Seeing none. Joel Daniels, can you please read the recap of the previous night?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. We began the capital budget process with a citywide 2021 capital budget of $88,922,497. Cumulative reductions to date, a total $1,997,975 for an updated citywide 2021 capital budget of $86,924,522. And I will just add that in preparation for tonight, staff have identified 2 projects that are no longer required for 2021. The first is Project 9C88, which is the Downtown Infrastructure Renewal Program, which had an ask of $155,000 in 2021. It's been determined that the previous allocation to that project is enough to see that project through for the remainder of 2021. And the second is Project 9C125, which is the Downtown Streetlight Improvements Project in the amount of $100,000, where staff have identified that the necessary EA will not be complete until year end. So these design funds will not be required until the following year. So with the removal of these 2 projects, that's another reduction totaling $255,000 and a revised starting point this evening of $86,669,522.
Thank you, Joelle. At the last meeting, we separated items 9C 42, 43, 44, 45, 47, 50, 52, 55, and 56. And I have this in my roadmap, but I don't have who separated, so you'll have to help me on the first sheet. So the first item on is the sidewalk condition assessment, reference page 72, technical study. I believe that was Councilor McCreary, though.
Mr. Chair, yes, thank you. You're correct. Through you to staff, this is a consultant that we're engaging to inspect sidewalks.
To the chair, yes, Councilor McCreary, that would be a consultant.
Thank you, Indy. Can you say what percentage of sidewalk repairs come from these sort of infrastructure studies and what percentage come from councillors and residents reporting problems?
Offhand, Councilor McCreary, I wouldn't have that information with me unless one of my colleagues know, but we can bring that information back to you.
Mr. Chair, is tonight our final night for deliberations?
Yes, it is.
Is
Well,
it?
we have another night set aside. If we don't get through this list, we have another night set aside.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Indy. I'd appreciate it, at least in time for council if we don't deliberate again on estimates. I'm thinking if we're largely reliant upon reports of crappy sidewalks, this expenditure annually perhaps isn't a worthwhile investment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor McCreary. And 9C 43 is another technical study retaining wall. I believe that is you too, Councilor McCreary.
That is correct. And Again, thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. Do we know how many retaining walls we own?
Go ahead, Mike.
Through the chair, our current inventory has about 433 retaining walls.
And do we know in every instance whether those retaining walls are on our property or on the property owner's property?
So the current list we have is retaining walls that are on city property or retaining walls that are splitting city property and private property.
And this is a condition assessment to advise us what's in need of attention. Is that correct?
Through the chair, that is correct.
Could we simply leave that to the neighboring properties to tell us what's needed of attention and not spend this money?
So through the chair, we've actually had an incident where the wall has given way into the neighboring property, which is causing us to scramble to find funding to actually repair that situation, which is unsafe. So what this condition assessment actually does is we're able to know now citywide, once it's complete, which ones are required within the first year are necessary immediately, and which ones we can actually plan according to our asset management planning practices into the other 5 to 10 forecasts.
Is this something we intend to do every 2 years?
Mike, what's the schedule on that?
Right now, we want to see how far we can get with the funding that we have requested for 2021. Depending on, we're still prioritizing which walls we want to see based off of their location and size. But funding in following years may be required to complete the condition assessment.
And sorry, gentlemen, you mentioned that there's a retaining wall that's in need of urgent attention and you don't have the money for it?
Yeah, through the chair. So we're looking at ways to make the area safe while we come forward with budget requests on that. We have to determine what exactly we need for that wall. That wall is within a city easement. And so that would be one of the first ones we'd look at in terms of what's needed in that area.
Okay. If you had this $50,000 in your pocket, you'd have $50,000 to contribute to that wall.
It would, but through a chair, then there'd be other walls that we don't know the condition of, and we'd be piecemealing all our solutions.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Councilor, I inadvertently missed you. You were up for last. Feel free to speak to either one.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to staff, I have a question. Really, 42, 43, 44, and 45 is that they're all nice, neat $50,000 packages, and I wondered, are these the upper level of what the costs may be? That's part one, and part two is in previous years, if we approve, these $50,000 and whatever the other amounts are, do they all come in at 50, or do they come in at less, or do they come in at more? Could you explain that, please?
Certainly, through the chair, for the sidewalk and manhole condition assessment, we're in like between the $35,000 and $45,000 range for those assessments.
Yeah.
We haven't done the retaining wall assessment before, so we used some contacts in the industry and some in estimating what that assessment could cost.
Thank you, Mike. Or what happens to the surplus?
It would
If
carry
it comes
over
in under the estimate, what happens?
It could be carried over into the next year or returned to the reserve.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilor Utley. Councilor Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, my question's for the first four on the page as well. Is there any of these that we have the expertise in-house to deal with?
So through the chair, it's not really. It's specific in terms of, so let me just look at these ones. Manhole condition assessment, facility building, roofing conditions, and retaining walls are really structural in terms of structural needs as well as the equipment needs. So for us to do that in-house, really, you'd be creating a team to do that and hiring specific structural engineers or technicians to actually guide those to do it in the time frame that we need it done. Sidewalk condition assessment, that's part of the minimum maintenance standard. We need to have all the sidewalks checked within a year. And in order for us to walk all the sidewalks in a year, we don't have the staff that can do that, as well as other responsibilities.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Martin. Any other comments on the first four? Thank you. The next one was 9C47, which is waste management, the concrete crushing and quadrennial contract. I don't have anybody down for that. Who wanted to speak to that? Do you remember? Okay,
Sorry, Mr. Chair, which was it?
the concrete crushing.
That was me.
Okay, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you. I just have to turn the page here. Mr. Chair, thank you very much. Through you to staff. Our concrete crushing program is biennial, is it? Can you remind me?
Through you, Mr. Chair, Councillor, it is once every 3 years is the
Okay.
program.
And Selvie, do you have any estimation offhand how many cubic meters of material we create?
Dean is with us. He'll jump in. I think we are estimating around 16,500 tons, somewhere around that.
Dean, can you comment?
Yes, Selvie's estimate is, sorry, Dean Hodgins, manager of solid waste operations. Selvie's estimate is good.
Okay. And the material that's created from the recycling process, that's used in construction and road building?
Yes, we use it for, through the chair, we use it for various purposes on site, either capital works or through road building activities on site.
Does that have a sale value, Dean?
In the past, historically, we have sold it, any excess that we don't need for the first two purposes. But for the last couple of years, we used almost all the material that we had available for our last big capital project, which was the scale house relocation. So we currently don't have enough that we would make available for sale.
What about, is the value of that material, the market value of that material, greater or lesser than the value of the contract to crush it?
You're asking if the price is lower than what we would make on it? Sorry, is that what the question is?
What I'm asking is if a third-party contractor would do the work at their own cost to sell the material and make a profit.
Well, our cost is approximately, when we sell it, our sell price is in between around $5. But our tipping fees around, I think this year it's 25, last year it was 21. So we are making a bit of a profit on the material.
That's taking into account the contractor's charge to us, right?
Well, when it's crushed for about $8 to $10 per ton.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
So have we ever looked at the opportunity for us to simply get out of this business and let somebody else crush it and sell it to third parties?
We are, through the increased tipping fee values, we are seeing lower tonnages being received by us. But if we did not receive the material on the site and crush it, we would have to purchase outside granular to build roads and for our capital projects. So there are some cost savings that way.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Councilor Curry. I see nobody else on the list. Moving on to private sewer lateral replacement, $100,000. I had an M down there without a C, so I'm thinking that's Councilor Martin. Private sewer lateral?
Yeah, give me a minute, Mr. Chair. Unfortunately, my notes are no longer in the previous e-scribe.
Right, no problem.
That the balance of the meeting was deleted along with my notes. Oh, okay, yeah, this one, can staff explain how long this program has been running?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I think it's almost 10 years if I could think. I can get you the exact year, but I would say roughly 10 years.
Close enough. And what's the reason for doing this?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So the reason for this is there are sewer blockages on the private side, and this is to encourage residents to repair their side of the sewer, while, you know, the city tried to maintain the city side, but the city side and private side both had to be maintained to prevent sewer blockages. So this is to encourage residents to replace their side of the sewer laterals.
What alternative do they have?
A lot of times what we see is residents, instead of repairing, they would have frequent cleaning, which is kind of continuing on multiple times, and then the complaints that there is a problem. So this is to assist them in replacing their side of the sewer.
Okay, and is it 50%? Like, is there a maximum for it?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, it is 50% to maximum $1,500 one time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Martin. The next item is Project 82, wastewater treatment plant affluent pumping station. I had Councilor Martin down for that one.
Yeah, without my previous notes, I can't remember why I separated this one.
Page 52. See if I can help you.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, it's page 82 and project 52.
Oh, sorry, you're right.
Oh, okay. How often has the river got high enough to cause a problem with this in the last couple of years?
Through you, Mr. Chair, this has been a problem, but it kind of has on and off. But in the recent years, we saw twice in, three times in 2019. And then in 2018, obviously with the flooding, we had that situation. But so far, we have been lucky that we were stopped, that we couldn't discharge the effluent for, say, half a day or a day, but we somehow managed, the river cleared it. The level dropped, so we were able to discharge. But what we're seeing is that with the changing weathers, we're seeing more and more, there are heavy rains and the river level increases, so we cannot bypass and we cannot discharge effluent. So if the river level is high, that's the situation we are in.
Okay, and this will allow you to pump the stuff out if necessary?
Through you, Mr. Chair, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Martin. Will this also, Sylvia, allow us to have more capacity?
To the chair, no, this is just the existing capacity, but when the river level is high, we can continue to discharge the effluent.
Okay, thank you. Reference page 127, project 55, airport building, 200,000. Councilor Vanderstelt, I believe.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, that is incorrect. I don't know who it is.
That was me, Mr. Chair.
Oh, okay. I lost everybody.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, with your approval, I'd like to include 57 and 58 on the next page as well. The question is covers all four projects. I just want to ask through you, Mr. Chair, to staff if these projects are being funded through airport reserves.
Through the chair, Lee Soto, Director of Facilities Management and Security. And I confirm that they are being funded through the reserve, the airport reserve.
That is wonderful news. Well done, Councillor Martin, and for doing such a great job with the airport funds. It's wonderful. Thank you. That's all I wanted to know. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
Sorry. Through you, Mr. Chair, I do just want to jump in and identify that project 9C56, which is on page 128, is currently being identified as being funded from the levy reserve and not the airport reserve. And I believe this was initially a result of us trying to present a longer term capital plan to council. And when the determination was made that we were only going to go with the 1 year at this time, we did not go back and look at the affordability of that reserve. What I can say is there's sufficient funds in 2021 to change the funding of that if desired, but it could create pressures ongoing into 2022.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
You may.
Through you to Councillor Martin, I just want to thank Councillor Martin for turning the airport around, and with the advent of more and more T hangars, the revenues are starting to come in and it's paying for itself. So like golf, I think it's two operations that have a lot to be proud of. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hartley. Moving on to next page. The items, project 57 through 69. So members of the committee, if you wish to separate any, have Councillor Antosky, you're first.
Thank you. Project 66, please.
Thank you. Councillor McCurry.
Mr. Chair, number 59 and number 62.
Thank you. Councillor Vanderstel, and then Councillor Wall.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My only one for the night, 61, please. 61.
Yep, got it. Councillor Wall.
Thank you. 64.
Okay.
And 62.
Okay, thank you. Move forward. Project 59, Garden Ave Bridge Rehabilitation. Councillor McCurry, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Chair, and through to you. The Garden Avenue Bridge has been one of our problem children for a long, long time. And am I correct, guys, in understanding that it was an initial problem with the design, which has led to some of our issues there?
Through the chair, Wendy Tufo, manager design and construction. It was partially part of the design, but mostly in regards to how it was constructed and interpreted.
Okay. Now I recall this discussion in, I guess, 1 or 2 administrations ago, and we were told at the time that because of a relationship with some party that was involved in the design or construction, that we weren't willing to seek a legal opinion on whether or not we could be able to recover some of our subsequent costs because of their errors in emissions insurance. And I wonder if that opinion still holds true, or if there's an opportunity for us to get a legal opinion to see if we can recover some of these costs from the people that built this for us.
It's Russell, Director of Engineering Services, through the chair. I don't think I can provide a response to that at this point. I believe the item was discussed and direction taken to move forward with the work that we're proposing for 2021.
Thank you, Russ. Indy, I wonder if you might take it up with legal staff off channel this week and see if there's an opportunity for us to pursue this.
To the chair, yeah, I can speak to Heidi.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor McCurry. Item 61, Councilor Andersdale. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, I assume to Indy. Yeah, I don't want to get too far in the weeds on this one, but can you please help me understand the 600 is for design and some of the work on Lord Bridge?
The Chair, Councilor Van Stel, so that's for the design of the rehabilitation that's required. Now, you might recall there's OSIMs that we do every couple of years on the bridges. That identified a need in 2015 for Lorne Bridge to be rehabilitated within 1 to 5 years. So we're actually outside of that right now.
And we still have that weight restriction, correct?
So 2016, there was a weight loading restriction placed on that immediately, which is also something we're looking to, part of this rehabilitation, to look to get removed from that. Also, there's because of the rehabilitation that's required and the age of the bridge, actually we have to do an environmental assessment. So that's where that kicked off, the environmental assessment of the 3 bridges, THB Brent as well.
That's right. Yeah, no, I recall that. Yeah, that's right.
So at the end of that, there'll be a recommendation put forward to council. So this funding is just the rehabilitation part of Lorne Bridge. It's not what the recommended alternative will be coming out of the EA. The EA may say rehabilitate Brent Crossing and THMB. So this is just for what the OSIMs and initial investigation provide us, in the sense of if you were to just rehabilitate Lorne Bridge right now, this is the amount of funding that you would need. So we'd like to move forward with the design.
Okay, so only 2 more questions. Our time is very expensive here, as I well know from so many other estimates committee meetings. There's so many people watching right now, staff that is. Okay, so what I'm trying to figure out is, can we shift this at all? Is there any risk in shifting it? Because as I read it in the report, it's state of good repair, SOGR. So if it's in a state of good repair and it only has a weight restriction on it, are there risks associated with moving the timelines on this? I'm concerned about the timing of when we have to shut part or half or some whatever part of this bridge down to do the work. What are the risks associated with shifting this?
So the risk, so by adding a loading restriction on the bridge is a risk immediately identified. That's why that loading restriction was put on the bridge. So that speaks volumes to the state of this bridge. So shifting it is a risk, and I'm not a structural engineer. We've got a structural engineer consultant throughout the years have said that there's an immediate need to put a loading restriction on this. And as we continue to push this project further back, for example, the cost of repair will increase too. So right now you see the construction cost is 6.6. Initially, I believe that was at 6 or 6.3-ish. So already we've halved the amount of cost that the design would have been. And so pushing it back is just going to keep increasing the need for the maintenance that's required, or the work that's required on that bridge.
So basically, the longer we wait, the more we pay.
That's right.
Okay, so last question. Sorry, Mr. Chair, I hope we have time for it. If we were to finish all the studies, all the feasibility, all the environmental assessment, the design study, and we have a plan, when are we going to see changes to the flow on the bridge, the traffic flow on the bridge? When do you think that's going to land, and how long do you think it's going to last?
So through the chair, for this project in particular, it's for the repair of the bridge. If we're looking at flow of traffic, that's as part of the downtown revitalization project. It's looking at Dalhousie, ICOM, Brant, Colburn, and Lorne Bridge, how that whole area works in terms of traffic flow, as well as throughout those 2 corridors as well, Colburn
and the timing, that'll be at the end of next year, or?
That's, we're aiming to have this EA complete by May, June, depending on the COVID restrictions of gathering or virtual meetings, et cetera, and the downtown one by the end of this year.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Eddie. Mr. Chair, I won't be asking any more questions tonight. I'm conscious of how much time we do spend in this process. All of my questions I'll ask behind the scenes of staff. Thank you.
Thank you. No more questions on this one? Okay, thank you. 62, project 62, page 134, that's the building and facilities, and I think I have Councilor McCurry for that, and Councilor Wall. Councilor McCurry, you're
Yes,
first.
that's correct, Mr. Chair. Thank you. And I will do my best to use up the time which Councillor Vanderstel graciously has given up this evening. With respect to the Market Center Parkade, this is probably our #1 money pit to date, I think. Do we know what the value of this asset is?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I don't have that value in front of me, but we can get that for you.
Okay. I find it highly unlikely that we could find anybody that would buy it from us because nobody would be that crazy. But I'm wondering, when I'm looking at $500,000 this year for various things, including retro to the elevator vestibules, if we might not be, it might not be a worthwhile exercise to look at the cost of demolition as well. This has been a headache since the day it was built, and it doesn't seem to have the prospect of getting much better for us. So I'm wondering if that's something that Public Works could give us an estimate on, as to really what the value of the asset is, what the total capital plan is for the next 10 years, whether or not we require the capacity for 2 floors of parking there, and you know, whether our asset strategy should be to retain that structure or not. I'm a bit reluctant to approve any more big expenses until we have that kind of long-term and alternate study in hand. Comment, Indy?
Yeah, through the chair, could I add how much we spend on operating as well? Cost
You could, yes. Mr. Chair, I think maybe what I'll do is I'll introduce an amendment asking for that information, if you think that's appropriate.
Yeah, can the amendment say we'll get that information before the end of the budget process?
Yeah, so does the clerk need me to repeat that? I hope not, because I'm not sure I remember what I said in its entirety.
I'll come right back to you, Councilor McCurry, as soon as I am.
Thank you. Yeah.
Through
Chris?
the chair, can I just clarify, are you looking to refer the project or just receive
No,
the staff?
just have the information before the end of the budget process.
I could definitely do that for you.
Thank you. Councilor Wall, you have the floor, sir.
I think Councilor McCurry has said everything that needs to be said for now, and I'll wait the report. Chair Carpenter, I'll also remove the other one that I requested.
Okay, 64. Yeah. Okay, Councilor McCurry, did you want to make that amendment?
Yes, I will, Mr. Chair. Hopefully seconded by Councilor Wall. That the staff prepare a report which would include A, the estimated value of the asset, B, the capital program required for the next 10 years, C, the required parking capacity, whether or not it would require, if it could be accommodated on a single at-grade lot. And I'm thinking I may have forgotten the 4th item. Cost of demolition. Cost of demolition, yeah.
And operating costs.
Yes, and operating costs. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
That's seconded by Councilor Wall, and Councilor Wall would like to speak to it. Councilor Wall, you have the floor.
Would that include revenue?
Yes, that's the operation, yeah.
Okay, sorry. Thank you.
No problem. Okay. Any questions on this amendment? Seeing none, I'll call a question on the amendment, please.
Having trouble here, Mr. Chair. I'm voting in the affirmative.
Councilor Sless is voting in the affirmative.
We're just waiting on Councillor Vanderstelt's vote and Mayor Davis's vote.
Councillor Vanderstelt's away from his computer. I don't know about the mayor.
Yeah, mayor's gone to another meeting. So we just note Councillor Vanderstelt was, there you go.
The amendment to item 9C62 carries unanimously on recorded vote. Members of the committee voting in favor as follows. Councillors Sless, Marn, Antosky, Wall, Weaver, Utley, McCreary, and Carpenter.
Thank you. The next item is building and facilities, Mohawk Greenwich perimeter fence, and I had Councillor Antosky for that. You have the floor, Councillor Antosky.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to staff. So it's the Ministry of Environment that's requiring that to be fenced off. Do we not have, do we have record of site condition for that space?
From the Ministry of Environment you're speaking about, just to clarify? Sorry.
Yes.
Yes, I believe we do. And this is for fencing that's been damaged, and we have to maintain that.
So what dictate, when can we take that fencing down? What dictates, I mean, other than the Ministry of Environment saying you have to keep it up, under what situation, what is the situation that makes it need to be there that people can't have access to that property?
Have to get back to you with that answer. It's probably better spoken to by our folks in planning department, but I can investigate that and get that back to you as well.
Yeah, if you could ask that and what our estimated time is to be able to remove that fencing, that would be great. And I guess the answer to that will be what dictates it having to be there. So thank you. Thanks, Lise.
Do we still have the boreholes there and the venting on that site? I think we do. Okay, that may be it. Councillor Wall, you have the floor.
Yeah, I was just wondering if perhaps we could save money by unfencing certain areas and using that fencing instead. And I guess that could come back through Councillor Antosky's request. I mean, we're getting ready to proceed down there with the Mohawk Lake District. So why do we have the fences up at all? Unless it's... Councillor Antosky said pretty much everything I wanted to say, save for the fact that perhaps there's a potential to just reuse existing fencing and remove fencing. There's lots of fencing down there.
Thank you. Staff will endeavor to get a response back to us. And you can send the response via email. Thank you. Moving on to items 70 to 85. Separation, please. Councilor McCurry.
Item 71, Mr. Chair.
Any other separations? Councilor Martin.
Yeah, I have one question that pertains to 72 through to 76.
Oh, any others? Seeing none. 71, Councilor McCurry, cemeteries.
Mr. Chair, thank you, and through you to staff. I didn't see it explicitly mentioned in the detail sheet, but I wonder if staff could indicate whether this includes repairs to the small mausoleum that's located in Greenwood Cemetery, which is in need of some tender, loving care.
Through you, Mr. Chair, Brian Hughes, Director of Park Services. We do plan to pay for those repairs through cemetery minor capital.
And is that work scheduled for this year?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I believe it is.
Can you tell me what day it's going to begin?
I'd have to get back to you on that.
If you wouldn't mind, thank you very much. And also, Brian, while I have you here, I see that there's, oh gosh, I've lost it now. With respect to Mount Hope, the mausoleum there. I thought I saw some work on that mausoleum, but I thought we'd already undertaken all that.
And some of the
I
interlocking.
think we're doing some roof work through you, Mr. Chair, but I don't believe it's part of this budget process.
Sorry, there we see, I see minor studies, investigations as noted in the mausoleum, various reports. So is there still significant work at the big mausoleum at Mount Hope, right?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, there is.
Okay, thanks very much.
Thank you, Councilor McCurry. Next item, Councillor Sless.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Brian as well. Brian, the roadway in Mount Hope is in not very good shape. Is that something you've got scheduled further down the line, or how are we dealing with the state of that?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we try to do our best based on the capital envelope they have at the cemeteries, and we repair it each year. Try to do minor repairs where we can with regards to the roadway. So we are aware of it, and we're going to look at options for the next few years as to how we can deal with it. It's a pretty big ticket item, as I'm sure you're aware.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sless. Seeing no more questions on this item, moving on to item 72 through to 76, Councillor Martin.
Yes, thank you. Through to staff, these are all fleet purchases, and there's no details as to what kind of vehicles are being purchased and whether they're gas, diesel, or electric, or hybrid. Is there any way we can get some more details on all the vehicles that are being purchased through these 4 or 5 lines here?
Good evening, Shane Pepper, Fleet Manager. Through the chair, yes, I could provide some insight on the types of vehicles being replaced in each of the departments and identify opportunities for electric vehicles. The Operational Services Department is mainly made up of replacement of heavy-duty trucks and sidewalk sweeper and sidewalk tractor. There is a compact SUV identified in the replacement for operational services that has possibility for electrification. In Parks and Rec, main 2 components are 2 ice resurfacers, a medium-duty dump truck, some turf equipment and utility equipment. Again, electrification and being identified for the 2 ice resurfacers in 2021. And in water, environmental services, 1 compact SUV, again being identified as a replacement opportunity for electric vehicle, and 1 forklift. And then golf is turf equipment, primarily a sprayer. So we've identified in all those departments, we've identified 5 units for possible electrification in 2021.
And is there sufficient funds in each of those areas for electric vehicles?
I will defer that question to Mike Bradley, the Director of Transit and Fleet.
Yes, through the chair, it's Mike Bradley, Director of Fleet and Transit. We are requesting some additional transfers to reserves through the operating budget during the operating process to electrify these vehicles. We budget, or we transfer reserve money to replace like for like, and electric vehicles are new, so we'll be asking for additional funds that way.
Okay. And the item for the golf course is 1 item for $140,000 for a sprayer. So did I hear you correct on that?
Through the chair, we are in the process currently now of reviewing the status of all the equipment within golf, which, as we know, the equipment at Arrowdale, the future for that equipment won't be required there. So we've just pulled that equipment out of service over Christmas, and we're in the process of evaluating that to determine what equipment will remain, what equipment will be retired and replaced. So if all funds are not required, then we would not expend the 140. The sprayer is approximately about $100,000.
Okay, so there's potential 40,000 surplus there. And is that coming out of the golf reserve, or is that coming out of the capital envelope?
I believe that comes out of the fleet reserves. Maybe Mike can confirm that.
Through the chair, yes, that comes from our fleet reserves that departments put into the reserve annually.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Martin. Councilor McCurry.
Mr. Chair, thank you very much. With respect to the 2 Zambonis that we'll be buying, you indicate you're considering electric power?
Through the chair, for the ice resurfacers, yes, we are strongly considering electric.
They work in a very wet environment. Is that not a concern?
No, it's not a concern. We have been in conversations with manufacturers. We've actually had an opportunity to demo the machine at the Wayne Gretzky Sports Center and collected some data from manufacturers, and I've spoken to other municipalities, and that has not been raised as a concern.
And one of those manufacturers is located here in beautiful Brantford. Does that manufacturer offer an electric variant?
They do.
Thanks, Shane.
Thank you, Councilor McCurry. Councilor, Councilor Utley.
Mr. Chair, I think Councillor Sless had his hand up before me.
Yeah, it went down all of a sudden. Councilor Sless.
Oh, okay.
No, I took it down, Mr. Chair. I wanted to know if Zamboni had electric, and they do. So thank you.
And Councilor Utley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Shane. Shane, the other $40,000 for fleet at golf operations, what's that for?
So tentatively, that is for a Greensmore and a utility vehicle, a maintenance utility vehicle.
Okay. So I know the small van that's there is relatively new, so it's all part of maintaining the course itself, by the sounds of it. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilor Utley. And that ends that page. We're moving over to items 86 to 104, looking for separations. Councilor McCurry.
Mr. Chair, thank you. Number 93, 95, 96.
Thank you, Councilor Martin.
Number 99.
Any others? Seeing none. Councilor McCurry, item number 93.
Chair, thank you very much. Through you to staff. This item is for design and construction of a number of easements, which I presume to read roadways, for a number of utility locations. First of all, the total value of the work, if I'm reading this correctly, is $200,000. And we're spending $50,000 to design the work, which means we're spending, if I read this correctly again, we're spending $50,000 to design $150,000 worth of work. Is there some reason why that's like a 1-to-3 ratio?
Through you, Mr. Chair. I think we have 50,000 for the design and 200,000 for the construction. That's the way.
1-to-4, I'm corrected, yes. That
Yep.
seems like it's pretty extreme. On architectural buildings, our ratio is usually like 1-to-10. Is there any reason why that would be so high for a road?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So these are not a typical roads. So these are in the forested areas or where the ground conditions and everything are different from a regular normal road we see. So these are estimates that we received in the conceptual stage. So we are using those prices.
And how have we gotten by to date without these new roads?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we have not been able to reach out to them. We were trying to maintain them through other parts of the road where we have access, but we really could not reach out to some of the catch basins, manholes, and sewers. So that's the reason we've started to work on this as an annual project to get access to those.
Do these require environmental assessments?
Through you, Mr. Chair, that's not something we need for these ones.
Thanks, Selby.
Thank you, Councilor McCurry. Moving on to item 95, parks renovations. Councilor McCurry.
Mr. Chair, thank you very much. I just wanted to, I think it says in the report that this includes the work for Jubilee Terrace Park to finish the work with respect to the howitzer project that we undertook a number of years ago. Is that correct?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, that is correct.
Now, can you remind me also if this capital source includes the remedial work that's necessary to make the cycling trail under the Lorne Bridge less Deadly?
Through you, Mr. Chair, no, it does not.
Is that in this year's plan, Brian?
Through the chair, it's Russ. I think that money has been approved for trails, and we do have money already set aside for that work.
For that specific work under the Lorne Bridge, Russ?
There is some monies that have been approved previously by council for work on the trails, and we were waiting for some components of the to make this be able to entertain some of the design by first making sure we had the land acquired, and also to see what may be coming from the environmental assessments going on for the bridge crossings. But I think there has been funding set aside on trails, off-road trails, that we'd be using for that kind of work.
So I'll interpret that to be a yes. Is that correct?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, Russ is correct. There was money approved in a previous budget year in an off-road trail account to complete this work.
So I'll take that as a yes to my question, if that includes the work underneath the Lorne Bridge to make that a lot safer. Thank you, guys. With respect to the asphalt paving, I don't know if we've identified areas to be paved, but I wonder if you could say if, like, clearly the most usable piece that we've got for folks, inner city folks, is the loop that extends up and down the Grand River. Are we concentrating our paving dollars to finish paving that so that urban users, people with baby strollers and wheelchairs, are going to have more complete access rather than paving outlying areas?
So I don't know if Brian wants to speak to the parks trails in general.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I was going to defer that to Russ because I'm really not sure what the allotment of funding is for the trails this year, which ones are getting done.
So through the chair, I think, again, we're not speaking to the items on the floor, which is about Jubilee. That is not the money. The money from the Jubilee park will not be used for trail work. There is other funding sources for that, and we haven't put together our program yet. But your comments regarding paving and where items be looked at for paving, we will take a look at that in conjunction with our plan that's coming up.
Excellent. And there are a number of us, Councillor Weaver and myself, Councillor Martin and Councillor Carpenter, who are regular riders of the trail, and we would happy to be your unpaid consultants for us and maybe save you, I don't know, $20,000 bucks. What do you think?
Through the chair, we've got grant application that'll save us a lot more as well. So we're hoping that we're going to be successful on those grant programs, including realigning Dobney Trail, and then some of those other ones off the Grand River as well, Wayne Gretzky and Powerline.
Yeah, that's excellent. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and I think the comment is that we would look at finishing the loop before we go extending pavement other parts of the city. That's the comment to take under advisement. 96, page 173, that's the Rotary Stania Park. I think that's Councilor McCurry.
It is, yes, and thank you, Mr. Chair, and again, through you to staff. The pavement here is entirely necessary to move our game up a notch, but I'm just wondering if it's in this time, if it's money well spent, and I just wonder if the status quo is not maintainable. When I look at the gravel nature of that and the cost of a few hours of grader time and some gravel, I just wonder if we can limp through another couple of years without spending the $500,000.
Through you, Mr. Chair. I'm glad you asked that question, Councillor. As we know, we've had a bit of a pattern over the years of developing parks, and they get bigger and they get more complicated. And at the end of the day, what suffers is our parking. We see that happening currently down on Edge Street with parking restrictions and parking problems associated with soccer fields. We've seen it at JC Park, where the park has been developed. And as a result of the parking lot not being substantial, we encounter regular operational problems. So I think the same can be said at Waterworks. Over the last 5 years, there's been a lot of development of that park. It's changed quite a bit with the addition of the bike park. We have a cricket pitch, we have a baseball diamond and a soccer field, not to mention the trails. So It's one of the busiest parks we've got. We've got the Brant Waterways Foundation investing about $50,000 in the pavilion. We've done accessibility work on the trail that joins the parking lot to the actual trail system in the dike to make it completely accessible. So the last step in that process was really to complete the parking lot and make it accessible, not only from a point of view of the surfacing, but the drainage is in need of being addressed, the lighting and the size of it. You can't double load the parking lot right now, meaning you can only park cars in single file down one side of it. So part of this project is to expand the size of the parking lot as well and improve the required infrastructure so that, you know, the people that are using it, and it is probably one of the busiest parks we have in the city, and is also a major trailhead. And as you know, the condition right now is not sufficient. So I support this. I certainly think it's required, and I support it moving forward.
Brian, does that include storm sewers for drainage, or is the drainage going to be gravity to the ditches?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, that would be part of the design and incorporated in the cost.
Thank you very much.
And certainly Wendy and Russ, if you know, it'll be under Wendy and Russ. If you guys wanted to add something to that I've missed, by all means.
Through the chair, it's Wendy Tufel. There will be substantial drainage components to rehabilitating that parking lot, because the drainage can't go directly into the Grand or the canal or any of those aspects. So it has to be controlled.
Meaning storm drains and sewers.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Wendy.
Thank you, Councilor McCurry. Councilor Sless.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Brian. Brian, during the renaming of the park, it was kind of adopted by the Rotary Club. And I wondered if there was any discussion with them as far as partnering with this parking and lighting and drainage?
Through you, Mr. Chair, not to my knowledge, Councillor, I'm not aware of that. I don't think there was.
Okay. Do you think perhaps we should be?
Through you, Mr. Chair, anything is possible, you know, whether it's that group. I do believe there was some sort of commitment made to the park with regards to, and I believe Brant Waterways also made a commitment to the park along with regards to improvements to the park, but I don't believe it was specific to the parking lot.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Sless. Councilor Utley, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to staff. First, I'd like to make a comment, if I may, and that is there's a lot of tourists, visitors that come from out of town to this park. And the one thing that's missing is a decent parking lot. It really is in an appalling state right now. And it really takes away from the beauty of the park, the significance of the park, the significance of the bike park. And I think it'll just be the finishing touch to that area and the people that live in the area as well. I can recall, I believe that the Rotary made a commitment to plant a number of trees or fund the planting of a number of trees for the many hundreds of trees that came down in that park through the Emerald Ash Borer. So I'd really like to see this stay in, Mr. Chair. And I hope that council will support that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Utley. Councilor Weaver, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm sure no one's going to be surprised that I plan on supporting this wholeheartedly, and I hope the rest of the council will as well. I just have a quick question for staff. I'm not sure who would be best to answer. It just when we're doing the drainage and the driveway for the parking lot, are we going to be able to add in a water line into the bike park? That will drastically help with the city's maintenance cost if we have some water sources located within the park.
Through the chair, Wendy Tufel, that could be certainly looked at.
Okay. I've been saying this for 2 years now, so I'm a little concerned that we're just looking at it. I really thought that would be part of the plan.
Currently, we don't have a clear design yet, so the staff are working on that right now.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Oh, and just while Brian's still on, Brian?
Yes, Councillor.
just wanted to say your staff have done an excellent job with that park. All the work you've done, that park looks beautiful. So I think once we have the driveway done and the parking lot done, I think this will be definitely a huge jewel in our city. So thank you for all the work you guys have done.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Weaver. To Wendy Tufel, just a question I have. Is there ability to do a parking lot that's not necessarily paved? There's stonework that can be done where the groundwater can actually drain into the ground. It's more environmentally
Through the
responsible.
chair, absolutely, there are opportunities like that we could look at, which would actually fit that scenario very well.
Okay, and if you're considering running a water line in, as Councilor Weaver suggests, and I agree with him, that's what we should be doing. Could we make sure that a water line would also be available for such things in case the neighbors, Hometown Neighbor Association would like to put an ice rink in that park? There's lots of room for a large ice rink in there. With a parking lot, that would be quite worthwhile down there.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. And I know in the past I've argued against this, but I've been down there. It's really in need of it, and that park is really getting a lot of use. I'll be supporting this. Okay, thank you. I see no other speakers on this. Next one, sorry, is the greenhouse boilers. Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Question through the staff. Do we know how much gas these boilers use in a year?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I can get you that information, Councillor. I don't have it off the top, but I can certainly get that for you.
Okay.
Yeah.
And did you consider, instead of replacing the boilers, moving the greenhouses to the landfill site so that they could utilize the waste heat from the landfill gas project?
Through you, Mr. Chair. There was a recommendation in the consultant report that was recently received from council with regards to possibilities for the whole horticultural program. And that report actually recommended keeping them where they are. So we didn't personally follow up with the landfill site. That could certainly be an option if that was the desire to research that. But as a result of the consultant's report, the direction was that we would maintain them where they are at Sherwood. The time
Did
being.
that consultant consider the landfill site?
Through the chair, we did.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Through the chair, yeah, we did mention that to the consultant to look at. Just high level, the cost of moving them was quite high as well. And they didn't really go into it more detail than that because they were more looking at the need to keep the horticulture or buy from external. So it wasn't directly related to what they're doing, but they did mention that the cost would be quite high to move that.
Okay, but once it is moved, then you have no heating costs because the heat's essentially free from the waste heat from the engines.
Right. So that cost analysis of moving and bringing in the benefit of it, that wasn't part of their program. So we don't have that information in terms of the amount of benefit that you're to receive.
Can somebody have a quick look at that before we move forward with replacing these boilers that might not be needed?
So what Brian mentioned in terms of if they're needed, but we can definitely try to bring something back. I'm not sure in terms of how intensive that investigation would be, but we'll strive to bring something back to the committee.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I may add to Councillor Martin's question, the 2020 cost for the natural gas was $19,000. So we spent $19,000 on the greenhouses, with the plan being that if we replace the boilers, the intention is the new technology will be more efficient as well. So there will be additional cost savings as a result of the new boiler systems.
Thank you. And Brian, could you bring us back the cost benefit analysis on that? What, if you're saying it's 19,000, it's going to be 10, tell us what the payback of the 100,000 is going to be.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we can investigate it. We haven't done any work to get actual numbers, but let me look into it and we'll get back to you with some information.
Thank you. Councillor Weaver, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was actually just wanted to request 9C100 to be separated. I didn't get to it before we began discussions.
Chair, you're muted.
Shall I proceed with 9C100, Mr. Chair? You're muted, Mr. Chair.
Yes, go ahead. I keep losing my screen. It's twice now and I'm trying to get it back in time. Last time Councilor Martin spoke long enough, I could get it back. Sorry.
I'll try my best in case you still need some assistance, Mr. Chair. So 9C100 is the Playground Rehabilitation and Replacement Program. And the budget for this year is $525,000. And just looking at it throughout, so we have a little bit of a pause, and then I'm assuming the pause is because of the lack of casino revenue. Is that correct? So there we go.
Through you, Mr. Chair, there was previous direction from council from a number of years ago to apply some casino funding to the playground replacement program, but I believe that has now come to an end. There is no future approved funding for that program through the casino dollars. And of course, there are no casino dollars available now currently. But that approval for that funding source has been fully utilized. So there's other envelope dollars being proposed to continue the program on.
Okay, and could we could council get a memo with how many parks we've done, how many are left to do? I know that this did have a lifespan, and we were hoping to get so many parks done over the length of that time. And so I'm curious to see where we are so far with that, because I think we were almost finished. So if we could get something from staff from that, please.
Through the chair, yeah, we can work on that, Councillor Weaver, get something to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, the report has a list of number of parks that still need equipment. Okay. All right, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Weaver. Thank you. Moving on to items 182, projects 105 to 118, separations, please. Councillor Martin.
Item 115.
Other separations? Seeing none, Councillor Martin, 115.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The question through to staff. This is regarding guardrails, upgrades and repairs. I'm just wondering if there's any plan to remove the guardrail in the corner of Farringford and Shelfleet. Sticks out like a sore thumb there. It's kind of ugly.
To the chair, Councilor Martin, we just got a condition assessment done last year on our guardrails. I would have to take a look to see if that guardrail is on the list for removal.
Okay, thank you. I'd appreciate an email. Let me know if it is or not.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Martin. What street lighting in Eagle Place, could you tell us where the street lighting in Eagle Place is going? Project 118, 195? New LED lighting, Eagle Place?
Mark Jackman, Director of Operational Services. Through you, Mr. Chair, I'm just looking for my sheet right now. It's actually between Erie Ave and Mohawk Street, between Emily Street and Burkett Lane, doing a full assessment of all the lights there.
Okay, yep, thank you. Moving on to items 119 to 130, looking for separations from members of the committee. Oh, Councillor Martin.
Yeah, item 129.
Did I see another one up there? I did not. Oh, Councillor Utley, and Councillor Weaver.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. 124, please.
Okay, and Councillor Weaver.
9C 120, please.
120. Any others? Okay, seeing none. 120, Councillor Weaver, CTV cameras.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'm just curious as to if we're able to connect this project with the other project for the downtown CCTV cameras. There might be some efficiencies in buying more in bulk, buying cameras for the Market Center Parkade as well as the downtown area. Is that something that we're doing already, or is it something we've thought of?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, we are including that with the downtown CCTV camera installation. It's currently been written in as a provisional item pending approval of this budget.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Weaver. 124, is that Councillor Utley?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you to staff. What's involved in the removal of the West End parking kiosk at Market Centre, and can it just not be boarded up, closed off? At $40,000 seems to be a lot of money to shut it down.
Through the chair, the removal of the West End parking kiosk. So the problem with it is there's a lot of people that are getting into it, a lot of vandalism, damage. There's actually a lot of electrical inside. So it's really important that obviously we're not using it, that we do remove it. The removal is actually the easy part. It's the electrical and everything else that's in there that we need to relocate into the parking garage.
Thank you, Mark. I didn't realize there was a lot of vandalism and damage being done there. So I would assume it may be being used for activities that are not becoming of society. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you. And Mark, keep in mind, Councilor McCreary has asked questions related to that parking garage, its cost, what the value is and so forth. So that'll come into it as well. Councillor Wall, you have the floor, sir.
Awesome. Just hearing that response and further to Councillor Utley's questions, I don't even know what I'm supposed to say to remove this item, but I think we should remove it for now, or maybe push it towards next year. And I would warrant that by saying, one, we just hired all these security guards who are supposed to be protecting our garage anyway to prevent this kind of stuff from happening. Two, we're spending all this money on security cameras, which the security guards are supposed to be watching to make sure this kind of stuff doesn't happen. And if Councilor McCreary's report comes back and it doesn't tell us the kind of stuff that we want to hear, we're going to be making some pretty serious decisions about the parking garage anyway. So it doesn't sound time sensitive to me. So I'm seeking a seconder to push this to next year. Or maybe never.
You have a seconder and Councilor McCreary. It's on the floor to remove it. Debate. Councilor McCreary.
Mr. Chair, thank you. I think what Councillor Wall has suggested makes some degree of sense. I could imagine we could take some minor action to make sure it's secured, but as has been discussed, we've made a significant investment in security downtown, and let's get them out patrolling and do their jobs.
Thank you, Councilor McCreary. Councilor Antowski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I like the thought here, but I suspect that the security guards won't be able to deal with the rats and the rodents that are causing a health and safety issue. I think I read that somewhere that was one of the concerns as well. Can that be confirmed, please?
Through the chair, that is actually correct. Yes, there are rats, rodents getting in there, and a number of other things that tend to get in there and cause issues.
And so how much of a health and safety risk is that directly to anybody that's coming and going from there? Because I don't know, my experience is they try to stay out of the way of people.
Has there been a response?
Sorry, Councillor, I think Mark is frozen on us. Sorry, can you repeat that, please?
Well, I'm just wondering, because it makes a lot of sense what Councillor Wall has said, but the other piece of it that I'm concerned about is the health and safety risk that's been highlighted in regard to rats and rodents. I'm wondering how much of a risk that is, how direct of a health risk is that to patrons or staff or etc.
Yeah, to the chair, Councillor Toski, it's not, I don't think that area is being used really. It's more of a drive in and out. So again, we have our security personnel. I know we talked about that and covering that area, but they will be out and about in the mostly in the downtown, not focused on the parkade or in that region. It'll be part of their walk, and as well as other areas of the city with their vehicle. But in terms of health safety of the staff that are in there, there's not many staff either in the park. It's not an immediate need. But again, one rodent and one staff in one area, there's always a chance for some sort of health and safety issue.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Antosky. Councillor Utley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I can't support taking this out of the budget at this time, but I would like, through you, Mr. Chair, some other options from staff. Like, can we affix steel plates to the windows and doors so nothing can get in there, including vermin? I'd like to see that first before we decide to take this out of the budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Utley. Mayor Davis, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To staff regarding this kiosk, how often does staff have to access the kiosk to deal with the electrical issues? And what exactly are they doing in there? And do the rodents and etc., do they pose any hazard to the electrical system itself?
Sorry, Chair. I think Mark, who's the expertise in that area, has frozen. We can get that information for the committee and bring that back. Sorry, I haven't, on a day-to-day basis, I'm not able to answer that, Mayor Davis, with exact timing of staff being in that area.
Yeah, because I haven't quite determined whether I'll support this or not, but I'd say this. I mean, the explanation given at in the budget material is not completely persuasive, but that could be just incomplete. So quite prepared to hear a better case for removal of the kiosk, but I think you're getting that anyways through the question. So
Through the chair, what we can do is we can add that as part of the report back that we're planning to bring for that Councillor McCreary had requested as well. And we can lump that into that report.
Okay, thank you.
And you could probably send a quick text to Mark that if he gets frozen, he can log out and log back in. Councillor Weaver.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Due to the direction the conversation has gone and the use of the words health and safety a few times, I'm going to need to declare a conflict, please.
Of course, yes.
I'll be abstaining from voting. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Councillor Wall, you have the floor.
I think the term is leave of my seconder that we'll remove this from the floor and let it come back with the report that they had already planned.
Thank you, Councillor Wall. Thank you. Moving on to item number 129, page 206, waste management. Councillor Martin, you have the floor, sir.
Yeah, part of this is to put in a stormwater management pond. With the landfill, leachate's a problem, and a stormwater management pond would increase that, would it not? Would it not encourage the stormwater to seep into the ground and then become part of the leachate problem?
Through the
Sorry, through the chair, Dean Hodgins, manager of solid waste operations. There is an existing stormwater pond, and the monies are just for the any repairs or upkeep of the pond. The stormwater management system and the leachate collection system at the site are totally separate. So there's no overlap between the systems. The clay cap provides that separation of the two systems and the protection on the environment.
So the water in a stormwater management pond doesn't make its way into the landfill. It goes outside eventually?
Yeah, there's a whole drainage pattern on the closed areas of the landfill site, which direct that water towards the stormwater management pond, the one that we have existing on the northwest side of the site. Any rainwater or snow water that is not fallen onto the cap in the active area is captured by our leachate extraction system. So the two systems are separate.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Martin. Moving on to the next page, 131 to 144, looking for separations. Councilor McCurry.
131, Chair.
Further separations? Councilor Martin.
132. 132.
Yep, gotcha. Any further separations? Seeing none. Councilor McCurry, 131.
Mr. Chair, thank you. Through you to staff. Sully, what's the total capital amount that we're looking to spend in 21?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we have
Wastewater.
$2 million per year.
Wastewater combined total, not just this item, Sylvie.
Oh, the total?
Yes.
Sorry, I need to look at the spreadsheet to figure out the total. I can get that to you. Sorry, maybe I can come back to that, Councillor.
Yeah, suffice it to say, it's a lot. I can't recall us ever having spent this much in wastewater in a 1 year a capital period. Is that a reasonable assumption?
Through you, Mr. Chair, if you may recall, in water treatment plant, we went through a major upgrade and addressed all the aging plant. But in wastewater, we haven't done that. So we did a master plan that showed all the projects that need to be done. So those projects have been scheduled over a 10-year period. So we're kind of doing them few at a time each year. So that's why you're seeing the projects now.
Are these all interrelated?
So the projects, it's all in the wastewater plant. So we do group them together. So there is economies of scale when we do them, and also our interconnected work is get done at the same time.
These will all be tendered individually?
Through you, Mr. Chair, for now, yes.
And who's the lucky staff member that gets to oversee all this work?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we have both the engineering staff as well as environmental services staff. We have staff on both groups working on these projects.
Okay, so a multitude of projects worth, by the look of it, about $10 million. You're sure we've got the capacity internally to manage all this work in 1 year, Sylvie?
Through you, Mr. Chair, that is something we critically looked at when we listed the projects here. We vetted them to see we have the capacity before we added them to the list.
Okay, thank you.
And just through the chair, it's the total is 14.4 million for wastewater.
Yeah, thank you, Indy. I just thought it'd be good to explore a big ticket item since we spent so much time on a $40,000 demo job.
Sorry, Councilor Martin, I didn't do it when I put the space bar. Councilor Martin, 132. You have the floor.
Thank you. This is a boiler replacement at the wastewater treatment plant. What happened to the boilers that the hydro company bought when the landfill gas project was set up?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So the boiler bought was a kind of a typical boiler that uses natural gas. What in the wastewater plant we use is the digester gas. So the boilers in the wastewater plant use both the digester gas and in an emergency natural gas. They are dual fuel boilers. So the boiler that they bought at the time was returned back to them. I believe they sold it.
Okay. And how many boilers total are there?
3 boilers.
And how many are being replaced?
Through you, Mr. Chair, all 3 of them are being replaced now.
Okay. Would it be possible to reduce the number of boilers needed if you tapped into the waste heat from the landfill gas project?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So the waste heat right now is not being collected at the facility. And besides, there is a cost to bringing that waste heat to the wastewater plant. There was a project at one time in the, we were thinking about bringing the waste heat to the wastewater plant and sending the digester gas for the landfill gas facility. And that project was put on hold because of the issues with the RESOP agreement and everything. So the waste heat right now, we use like a glycol system that kind of a closed loop system that collects and dissipates the heat right now. So that's the way it exists right now.
Okay, but part of that $2 million, instead of replacing all 3 boilers, could easily put in the piping needed to utilize the heat from the engines.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we looked into that. There isn't enough heat at this time to bring it over here. And if it works, if it is a water-cooled system, now it is a glycol-based system. So it is different the way the gas facility, the engine's cooling system works right now. So that's the reason for moving forward with the and besides, we couldn't move forward due to RESOP, the bigger level of projects we were thinking. So our plan right now is to move forward with the spoilers at this time.
Does the RESOP prevent the use of the waste heat? I realize that we can't use the biogas.
Yeah, it's so it doesn't specifically prevent, but we do have to go back and get their approval for any material that is to be taken out of there.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. Councillor Antosky.
Thank you, Chair. Through you, just following up on Councillor Martin's comments there, I just want to make sure that we are still looking at any kind of opportunities or possibilities to amend, change, delete the RESOP agreement, because especially given the Waste Free Act and all of the things that the province are supporting, I would think that there could or may be some ability to change that and to fit more with what our province is trying to enact with efficiencies and energy efficiencies. I think that RESOP agreement was signed and agreed to before all of these programs were put in place.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we are I'll make a note of it, but that is something we are pursuing at this time.
Terrific, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Antosky. Moving on to items, projects 145 to 155, looking for separations from the committee. Councillor Martin.
A question relating to 145 and 146.
Thank you. Further separations? Okay, seeing none, Councillor Martin, 145.
Thank you. Through you to staff, these are both projects involving water meters. Is this work connected at all? Like, are we doing the pilot project with meters that need to be replaced anyway?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So we are currently working on a pilot project that is mainly, I guess the simple answer is no, but the pilot project is mainly on industrial commercial customers. And so the residential customers will be a few years from now, we'll reach out to them. So we have looked at the age of the meters. Our goal is to not replace any new meters. So it's only to replace older meters part of this project. And besides, we're also looking at compatibility issues. So any pilot project is to figure out that that whatever device that goes on top of the meter to communicate to the meter data, that it is compatible with the existing meters. That is also a thing we are looking at it at this time.
Okay, so project 146, is that residential meters that are being replaced?
It's most residential meters, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Martin. Councilor McCurry.
Mr. Chair, thank you. Through you, could you indicate what program or system we're using currently to read our meters and to manage our information?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'll try my best. That is our finance department. They have the expertise on it. So the meters right now, we can either go, it's a touchpad where they use a device to touch the meters to get the reading.
Actually, Sylvie, I'm just looking for the name of the proprietary company that provides the system and the equipment. You probably don't know that. If you could just have that information for us in a memo.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'll try that, but just quickly, the meters are, we have two types, different type of manufacturers. So you're looking for a reading system, what type of a meter reading system we use?
Yes, and the way we manage that data, if you would, please. Thank you.
Sure, thank you. Will do.
Thank you, Councilor McCurry. Sylvie, one quick question on this one. This is saying we'll have immediate access to consumers' consumption information. Does that mean we see consumption spike? We'll be able to notify that consumer right away that they may have a problem?
To you, Chair, that's correct. So with this, they can, what we are hoping is they can sign up on the website. So you'll automatically notify them whatever differences that they set a threshold. So it'll automatically notify the homeowner or a business owner that the level is higher than normal.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Vanderstel.
And now I feel guilty because I said I wouldn't speak again. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Selby, is there any appetite in any community anywhere to set up a Bluetooth reading system whereby it feeds through to the residents' Wi-Fi if they have one, so as to eliminate the need to send people around door to door to pick up this information? I mean, we have Bluetooth on everything from our thermostats to our keys, I think. Is there anything like that on the market right now?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the Smart Meter project is exactly that. So this is, you are familiar with the smart hydrometers. So the technology has improved from 2010, where the hydrometers were installed. So the data can be transmitted through a device on the water meter through satellite, and there are devices use cell phone technology. So part of our pilot project is to evaluate those technologies and choose the best system, and also coordinate with the Brantford Power if necessary.
And if that is true for, let's say, 60% of the homes, it'll probably never change that we will have to send out physical bodies and readers to locations that either are in transition or are not online, have no online services, or no desire to have online services. We'll never be able to eliminate that door-to-door program, will we?
Through you, Mr. Chair, if I understand correctly, the door-to-door checking the meter readings won't be necessary once we move to a smart meter system, because it would be.
I guess what I'm saying is not everybody is going to be online. Either they won't be able to afford it, or they choose not to, or they are in transition, like leaseholds, renting, tenants leaving, tenants going. There will be intermittent readings in there where you're going to require someone going door to door, correct, for verification?
Through you, Mr. Chair, with the smart meter program, that won't be necessary because the devices are installed by the city. So they would automatically transmit the data. So if the resident wants to get emails, yes, they can. If they don't want to, they can always call the city, the usual customer service number, and get the information if they need it.
So long story short, we're phasing out the walkers. They're not going to be with us forever.
Through you, Mr. Chair, that's correct. It is going to take few years, but that's the end goal.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor. Thank you, Councilor Van der Stel. Okay, we're on 9D. Do any members wish to make any motion to add proposed 2020 capital program to this time? Councilor Antosky.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I am, and I've got this written out, although subject to some answers to some questions, I may amend this. But what I've got is that in line with the recommendations of the Climate Change Action Plan, staff be directed to undertake a tree canopy expansion project in 2021 in the amount of $30,000 to be funded from the Tree Planting Reserve Fund. And if I may speak to that for a moment, please, Mr. Chair. As is stated, this is one of the recommendations in our corporate climate change action plan for $30,000 a year. We need to get back on track with our tree.
Sorry, Councilor Tusk, I need a second. I have Councilor Utley. Okay, sorry.
No, I'm sorry. I had Councilor Weaver as a seconder. Sorry, I thought I said that. My apologies. My apologies. I thought I said it. So I think that we need to look at this. I'm hesitant in having it just saying a project in 2021 because I'd like to hear from staff more specifics in terms of, I think that we stopped this program when we were dealing with the emerald ash borer, and that was just a transfer of funds. So are there funds still going into this? And if so, I would want this to be directed to become a tree canopy expansion until we're done the tree expansion. So staff can maybe give us a little bit of an update in terms of the funding of that. Was it a switch from the emerald ash borer, or where are we with that? I know that we did put this on hold.
Okay, so what we'd like is the balance of the account, and is the money there, and is it in exchange for other programs? Go ahead, Joel.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'll try and answer part of this. The balance, so Councillor Carpenter, you asked about the balance in the reserve fund is approximately $190,000 at this time. We, as part of the operating budget, there is a current budget for existing tree planting activities. I actually don't have the amount in front of me, but I believe it's $130,000 or $140,000, a tax supported budget to support those activities annually within the parks budget. That was separate from the activities that were associated with the emerald ash borer. So those were largely capital funded through capital funding sources and not an ongoing type of operational budget item. And I'd have to defer to park staff with where that work is.
Brian?
Yes, I can certainly speak to that. So Joelle is correct. We, in the operational budget in the forestry section, we have a planting budget of about $130,000 annually. And we draw from the reserve, not all of it, but we draw part of that funding from the reserve annually. There's also an emerald ash borer budget that's part of the capital project that we used to remove the ash trees over the last 10 years. And as part of that, also replant. So there's still funding available in the capital funds to plant more trees. But I think what we were looking at here was, and you correct me if I'm wrong, Councillor, drawing from the tree planting reserve to add funding for this project, which is also something we could do.
Yes, that's how we've written that up. I'm trying not to limit it. I want to get this on the books as a a tree canopy expansion project moving forward. But there's more questions, so we'll see where that goes. Thanks, Brian. Thanks, Joel.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Antosky. And speaking to the amendment on the floor, I have Councillor McCurry, Councillor Weaver, and Councillor Mandersout. Councillor McCurry.
Mr. Chair, thank you. Through you to staff. If I recall correctly, yeah, last year, the year before, we approved, I believe, a program that saw the addition of resources to maintain these trees, at least in the first year after planting. Is that correct? Is my recollection correct?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, Councillor, that's correct. We had brought in some students through the summer months to augment the trees and just make sure they were watered and all the steps that were taken to keep them alive was in place. So yes, you are correct.
Does that program continue this year?
Through you, Mr. Chair, that was funded through the capital at that time, so we don't have plans to continue it this year.
And the outcome of that was favorable, is that correct?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, it was very favorable.
So with respect to the item before us now, to be able to ensure that this material survives the first year, should we be, I wouldn't want to decrease the number of trees in order to pay for the maintenance. Could you suggest how we would enhance this amount to make sure that these things all get maintained properly to maximize our investment?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I think if we did something similar to what we've done in past years with some summer staff to augment the program, I think that would be beneficial.
Now, that's something that you'll have in your operating budget, is it?
Through you, Mr. Chair, it's something we could have in our operating budget. We don't currently.
So does that, if you've eliminated it from your capital budget, does that mean to put this back in, you'll have to eliminate something else?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I guess we'd have some options that we can consider if the direction was to reestablish this program. Then we could look at options.
Sure, and I realize I may be a bit off topic, but do you recollect offhand what our budget for tree planting is this year?
Yeah, it's annually. It doesn't really change,
Okay.
Mr. Chair. It's roughly around 130, 135, $135,000 annually.
Okay, so
That's through operating. Sorry.
Yeah. So, Mr. Chair, I'd like to amend this to direct staff to include an amount for the same tree maintenance program that we've had in past years. When you think appropriate, I'll add that in.
Unless the mover and seconder consider it friendly.
That's friendly.
Okay, it's friendly. It's in.
And that would give direction to staff to incorporate that in their operating budget, to be clear.
Within their existing operating budget, yes.
I didn't say existing. We'll leave that for them to bring to us at round 2 of budget, okay?
When we get to operating, sure, they'll explain how they did that. Thank you, Councilor McCurry. Councilor Weaver, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to Councilor McCurry for the amendment, and thank you for Councilor Antosky for discussing this with me before we got here today. So I'm happy to second this. How many years has it been since we stopped our program, Brian? Sorry, you just laughed and now I'm calling you back. Sorry.
That's okay. Through you, Mr. Chair, which program? Sorry, Councilor.
So when the tree canopy, we had a program where we were trying to get to a certain percentage across our whole city. I don't recall what that percentage target was. Do you, by chance?
It was 40%.
40%.
And it's not that we stop. We do plant annually every year. The problem being is when the emerald ash borer appeared, it just devastated the canopy, and we lost what 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 trees over the last 10 years. So it was pretty devastating, and it's pretty hard to rebound based on what we currently plant annually. So we added more trees, and we got approval through our capital and through the EAB program to replace trees. So we're doing it at both sides. We're doing some tree replacement in capital, and we're doing some in operating each year.
Okay, and so Brian, when actually, yeah, I have some more questions, but I think I'll take them offline for you, Brian. Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Weaver. Councilor Vanderstel.
Could staff please put the amendment, the motion and the amendment on the screen? I'm just a little unclear. Is this money that we already have in reserve that we're committing to a program, or is it new monies?
This is money in reserve, and the new money would be the operating costs.
Okay, thank you. Further to that, is this making best or use of our community engagement and involvement with people who are already heavily involved in these projects? Is it something that we can partnership with other agencies, organizations, service providers that provide the same thing? Have we talked with them? Is there a chance for matched dollars, either with interested parties or with other levels of government? Brian, I guess.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I think if we're directed to do so, we'd have to create a plan that's balanced. That includes both. There's a balance between some community engagement and some planting in that area, but also augmenting our current program and expanding upon what we do in-house as well. So I think the answer is that there's a balance between both.
So based on your past experience, do you believe that to be beneficial so that we can plant more trees together?
Yes.
Definitely.
Is that something that the mover and seconder would be amenable to?
I'm looking specifically how you want it added in there, Councillor Vanderstel, but I like the sound, but I'd like to see the word.
It's not on me. To best effect, based on staff's experience, how do we plant more trees together?
Yeah, the suggestion is that they look for partners in the community to add more trees.
Sure.
Part of it.
Yeah, I see my seconder nodding as.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Vanderstel. Councilor Sless.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Brian. Brian, $30,000. How many trees does that put in the ground?
Through you, Mr. Chair. It depends on the size of them. So if we were going to consider the trees that we would normally plant on the street, I think you'd probably get about 70 trees for that pricing. But if you went with saplings, smaller trees, you would obviously get many, many more.
When you say sapling, is that like a whip?
Yeah, like a whip. So if you were dealing with whips, you would have hundreds and hundreds of them, as opposed to a caliper tree, which is substantial. Now, keeping in mind, you put a whip into the ground, it's going to be a few years before that establishes any tree canopy, as opposed to the more mature tree that is going to have a canopy. It's going to contribute to canopy as soon as you plant it.
Right. And then finally, the money you're adding in for maintenance of these trees, I think that you said students in the summer to ensure the first year goes well. Are you putting it in an amount that will address our regular planting? I think you said about $130,000 a year plus these trees. Is that what you're looking to fund?
That would be the best option to maintain the trees we fund plus these other ones. That would be the best option that we could do to make sure that all the trees receive the same kind of service and treatment.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Councilor Antosky, I saw your hand back up. Did you want the floor?
No, it's fine. Thank you, Councillor Carpenter. Councillor Sless asked my question.
Okay. All right. Brian, while they're on the subject, could we work with our social media and our communications department to find out, to let the residents know that if you don't have a tree on your front boulevard, please call us if you'd like one?
Definitely, Mr. Chair. Yes, we can definitely do that.
Okay, thank you. Any further comments on this one? See none, I'm going to call the question.
The amendment with the friendly amendment carries unanimously on recorded vote. Members of the committee vote in favor as follows. Councillors Vanderstel, Sless, Marn, Antosky, Wall, Weaver, Utley, McCreary, Carpenter, and Mayor David.
Thank you. We're on further increase to the capital budget. Councilor McCreary.
Mr. Chair, with your leave, I'd like to ask a question in advance of moving an addition.
Yes, go ahead.
Through you to staff, I wonder if staff could indicate whether or not at present we have an allowance, either in operating or capital, for crack sealing on our asphalt paved trails, multi-use trails.
Through you, Mr. Chair, as I understand it, it's an annual contract through the Public Works area. We don't have it. We don't have an annual funding source in parks for that type of maintenance along our trails.
That was my understanding too, but I've yet to see a crack filled on our trails, although as soon as one crosses the county line, they're undertaking that work. Is anybody from Public Works able to comment?
I'd ask, in terms of our trails, really, Councillor McCreary, not that I'm aware of. Public Works seems to patch, but not crack seal.
Okay, thank you for that. Then I will move an addition to the capital budget, Mr. Chair, in the amount of $25,000, an upset limit to permit crack filling on City of Brantford paved multi-use trails.
Seconded by Councillor Martin. I see. Yes, it's on the floor. Go ahead, Councillor.
Mayor, sorry, Mayor, I'm promoting you again, Mr. Chairman. I'm sorry for that to both you and the mayor. So to speak to this, you know, we invest every year in asphalt on our trails, but we really haven't got a program to make sure the investment's properly maintained. And, you know, as years go by, we just see these things deteriorating to the point where some of them are almost gravel. So I'd appreciate support for this for the coming year. Hopefully it won't cost that much, but I'd really like to make sure our investment's protected.
Thank you, Councillor McCurrier. Councillor Weaver.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Question for Indy, I think. We'll take it. So how much does it cost to do a program for the filling of the cracks on a multi-use trail? Is the amount identified going to be significant enough to make a big difference, or are we talking like 100 meters of trail?
So through the chair, Councillor Weaver, it depends on how much volume we have in terms of the program. If we're starting off with 25K to get something started, I think it's a good start. But we really have to understand, again, through our condition assessments, I know we've used that word quite a bit, but to understand what condition they're in and what we can repair in terms of that funding. What we'll do is we'll match in terms of the areas that we really see needed with this funding, and the bigger the volume in terms of cracks and how they're usually linear meters, how they're measured. For the roads, it's probably something similar for our trails. So what we'll do is we'll have to see what we fit within that limit, and then we can always report back to say what we did and if more is needed.
Okay, great. Yeah, I'm going to be happy to support this, and thank you to Councillor McCreary and Councillor Martin for bringing it forward.
Thank you, Councillor Weaver. Councillor Vanderstelt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Indy. Is this a great opportunity for us to figure out how far this additional investment will go? I mean, can we do a comparative study to find out treated trails versus untreated trails and what the savings are in the long run?
So there's, in terms of asphalt and deterioration of asphalt, it really comes down to the base. I mean, if you're talking multi-use along the roads, it's a different base for the right-of-way than through your trail system. So I think if we're to do that, we're really looking at a program here for our trails specifically. I think we have to get started on it first. It's a good suggestion to get started actually on something like this. It could bring us more life out of the asphalt. You do try to repair the asphalt before it does get to the base, and this is a technique to do that.
So we'll be able to measure what we're managing, correct? I mean, if we do 10 kilometers of treated trails and compare that over 2 to 5 years for untreated trails, we'll have a better idea of how long our trails are lasting because of the additional investment, right?
Yeah,
that's a cost benefit analysis I'm talking about.
That's right. And part of it becomes, you know, when we do these condition assessments of the trails, you'll probably see the trails being pushed out a little bit further because of a program like this. You're saving the granular, right? You're saving the base.
That's
and
right.
that's really what
I just want a system to measure it. That's all. Indeed, just so that we know what we're doing.
Yep, we can take that and see where this first limit gets us, and then report back.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Vanderstel. Councilor Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think this is a good start for this project. 1 year at this amount will give us an idea of how much of the trail can actually get covered with crack filling. Prevention is always money well spent for this kind of thing. If you increase the life of the asphalt significantly by sealing the cracks, and you save redoing the asphalt sooner. So obviously this is an investment in our future. And I think after 1 year, we'll be able to tell how much of the trails have been treated and whether we need to increase the amount annually, or if 25,000 going forward per year is the right amount for this. So my question through the staff, will this be done in combination with the crack sealing for roads to get a better price on the tender?
If we can combine it, Councillor, we will. Again, I don't have the information in front of me in terms of the locations and our conditions of the trails, where we would be applying this to, and how we want to hit it. So the short answer is yes. If we can, we will. It would definitely be a saving. You probably get more bang for your buck out of the 25K.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you. Joel, where is the money going to come from?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. So before voting on this, there will need to be a funding source identified. I could suggest, based on where the reductions have come from throughout this process so far, that we could recommend the capital funding envelope as the source of funding for this project.
Okay, is that okay with the committee? I don't see anybody saying no. That's okay. We just want to identify it. Okay. I just like to take a quick moment to speak to it. The concern I've had for all along with paving the trails has been at the base. The trails are in wooded areas. You know, they're on the dike. The base itself isn't like the road base. And my concern was the more trails we pave, the more road network we've added, although it's trails, and we're unable to keep up with the road work in the city as it is. I get concerned when we start adding to the trails. I understand why that's necessary and why council wants that. It's always a concern for me that trails may win out over a road structure. But anyways, I understand that crack filling. So Andy, would you look at the base to make sure the base is, because I noticed when the Glaves Trail was paved, you know, there was one tractor going down there scraping, another one dropping down gravel, and another one paving pretty much. And I don't really call that a good base from what I've seen real road work being done. So can we look at the quality of base going forward when we do paved trails so they last longer?
Yeah, it's something we can look at, Chair Carpenter, and we can look at our standards in terms of when we do new trails or repaved trails, what our standards are and what they're in place, and definitely have a second look at that.
Okay, thank you. I see Councilor Martin popped up. Councilor Martin, you have the floor.
Thank you. Through you to staff. For maintenance on paved trails compared to the stone dust, which costs more for maintenance per kilometer in a year?
Might have to refer to Brian on that one. Typically, if you're looking at granular, for example, you've got to go back and fill in the potholes, and you get quite a few, because if you're in a forest area, you're going to get a lot of water and drainage issues there that are going to pop your granular, and you're driving over and fixing that as well. So I mean, you get that. The asphalt, depending on how Chair Carper said in terms of the base is applied, if it's not that great, you're gonna see issues there. If it's a good job, it's less likely to go out. But if Brian has some of the numbers and with that, we can give some more detail.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, sorry, I don't have any numbers, but I think Indy hit on it. The maintenance of the granular, obviously, they consume a lot of time and a lot of hours with washouts, potholes, and repairs we have to make. Not to mention the weeds that might grow up through them that we have to deal with, or the grass we have to cut. So my opinion would be, you know, once you pave it, and maintain it. If you do it correctly, it's important, as you have said, to get the correct base down. That's the most important part of it. You get the base right and you get the trail paved, I think you're going to find less maintenance down the road, other than the maintenance you're going to put forward if you're going to remove snow and that sort of activity. But as far as maintenance of the structure goes, I think we're getting more bang for our buck with the paved surfaces.
Okay, thank you. I suspected that might be the situation, and Councilor Carpenter raised the concern that it was making more work by having it paved, but I think it actually makes for less work. As far as the base is concerned, where the trails are over previous railway tracks, is there not a good base from what was done for the railway to start with?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, there is. There's quite a substantial base in that case.
And same with the dike?
Yes, that would be the case for the dike as well.
Okay, so it's the areas that aren't rail or dike that you need to work a little more on putting in a good base then.
Yeah, for the most part, we seem to have the most problem with the trails along the Gretzky Parkway, along the Veterans Memorial, and in areas there where the base probably wasn't substantial enough at the time when it was constructed. Those seem to be the areas that are failing.
Okay, and the Gilkinson Flats area, is that going to be paved next year? And is there a proper base put down for that?
Through you, Mr. Chair, that was completed just this past year, so that has been paved and the base is adequate. Yes, it was a nice job.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. Councillor McCurry.
Thank you, Chair. Brian's comment about washouts leads me to ask if our capital program for 2021 includes dealing with the two significant washouts that would lie between let's say, the foot of Glenhurst and Dufferin Avenue.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I don't believe so, Councillor, if I've got the locations that you're referring to.
Can you suggest if we've identified a solution to those two areas that are a problem, Brian?
Just to, through you, Mr. Chair, just to ensure I'm in the right location, Councillor, are you referring right behind the Glenhurst property where it flows over the trail and then down the slope? Is that the area you're referring to?
Yeah, there's one there. Sorry, maybe I'm a bit too far south. The other one is by the black steel bench.
Yes, I know the ones you're referring to, and they have been ongoing problems. We have tried to consider solutions for those, but maybe we can work moving forward with Russell Luke's group and try to figure out a better solution. In the short term, it's probably more economical to fill the ruts in those cases as opposed to the actual engineered solution to try to solve that problem. But we can certainly take that under consideration.
Yes, the one of those ruts will soon reach Ava Road, I think, without a little care and attention. And you do have in your capital plan the repairs to the stretch past nearly to the railway. Now I'm misspeaking here. East of east of Mohawk Park, Brian, the complete washout. Is that under repair in 2021? Sort of between Mohawk Park and the long former train culvert.
Sorry, through you, Mr. Chair, you're referring to kind of the Canesville, kind of the landslide area there?
Canesville, that's the word that eluded me.
Yes. I am not sure of the status of the repairs of the trails in that area. I think they might be on hold until that whole landslide issue is resolved.
I would suggest that the two are not interconnected, and it's putting it's really putting our intercity trail out of use to about 90% of the population. So I think if Brian, could you get us a memo about the nature of that work, and if more money is needed for this year, perhaps we can introduce that when this comes to council.
Sure, Councillor, if I can just ensure I'm in the right areas, because in that area we had traditional problems with the landslide releasing and the trail being covered with material from that area and blocking the trail. So is that the area you're referring to?
I believe we're on the same page. But as I say, it's, you know, we need an immediate solution to a small problem for a lot of people that now can't use our trails and connect with, they can't do the intercity trail experience that we promised tourists, right? So I think it's important that we get that looked after this year in some way, whether or not that's a permanent solution or something that will last us a couple of years. It really is. I really think it's important that we deal with it now.
I will discuss it with my colleagues and we will get back to you.
Are we talking about Beach Road then? No.
It's to the east of that, Mr. Chair.
Okay. All right, up top. Thank you. Councillor Martin, you have the floor.
Thank you. I think the area that Councillor McCurry is referring to is just east of the end of Beach Road. As you're going along beside Beach Road, it's kind of level, and then it goes uphill just past the end of Beach Road, and it's always washing out there, and it's a steep hill, and it's washed out. It makes it very difficult for people to get their bikes past that area.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. I know what you're talking about now.
And that's an area where people misconceive where the road is and where the trail is, and the driveway next to it is where there is a house down there. Okay, thank you. And we've had some parking problems down that we've rectified. Okay, thank you. Any more comments on the amendment? Seeing none, I call the question.
The amendment carries unanimously on recorded vote of 10-0. Members of the committee vote in favor as follows: Councillors Vanderstelt, Sless, Marn, Antosky, Wall, Weaver, Utley, McCreary, Carpenter, and Mayor Davis.
Thank you. Is there any more additions to the capital budget from members of the committee? Any more additions? Kind of like planning a third time. Any more additions? Thank you. I'll move on. Staff, can you give us an update of the figures where we are?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I will just fill in the blanks at step 10. The January 18th amendments, so amendments made this evening, have resulted in net reductions of $200,000. That represents the two project deletions at the beginning of the night and the two additions at step 9D. So just to note, total net reductions through the entire capital budget process, total $2,197,975, with an updated citywide 2021 capital budget totaling $86,724,522, and that will be the amount that carries forward to step 11A.
Thank you. And now any more items members of the committee wish to add on the capital budget or delete? Seeing none, I'm now going to call the vote on the capital budget. Oh, Councillor Wall, I see your hand up. No, okay. No. All right. Don't want to miss anybody. I'm going to call the vote. Thank you.
The capital budget as amended carries unanimously on recorded vote. Members of the committee voting in favor as follows: Councillors Vanderstelt, Sless, Marn, Antosky, Wall, Weaver, Utley, McCreary, Carpenter, and Mayor Davis.
Thank you. Oh, Councillor Martin, did you have a comment?
Just a question. Now that the capital's done, how soon will we get the operating budget so we can start going through and making notes?
My understanding is early February. Could Joel, you could speak to it?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. It is still going to be a few weeks out. The first meeting of the Estimates Committee is tentatively scheduled for Wednesday, February the 17th, and we would aim to have that document out to council early in February, well in advance of that meeting.
Earlier would be better. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Martin. And as the committee knows, this is sort of a 1-year budget, capital budget. We'll be going back at the capital budget after we know our full cost mid-year of the COVID and all those expenses. Oh, Councilor McCurry, you had a comment. Sorry.
Mr. Chair, yes, I had a look back at prior budgets this afternoon during my ever so brief break between municipal business. And our forecast to 2019 was to have spent 86,800,000. And today we've settled up at 86,724. So I think we're pretty much on track with what we predicted a couple of years ago. However, when one looks forward, I realize there'll be some changes, but the budget that we identified for 2022 jumps by about 13 million, and then 2024 jumps by another 20 million. So we do have some work ahead of us, and it's not until I guess 2026 the numbers start to normalize back down again. And I'm presuming a lot of that's going to be the growth that we're going to experience as a result of the costs taken on by the annexation of the former county lands. But I think I'd like to congratulate the chairman tonight for the good work that he's done on this one and keeping us well on track. At times it's like herding cats. I just want to express my appreciation for the work he's done.
Thank you. And I know all members of the committee that have done this before. Councilor Martin did it last year. You know, difficulty it can be sometimes. It's worked out pretty good first time being a virtual one. Councilor Toski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was also going to comment and thank you for shepherding us through this. I also have a comment for Indy and how pleased I am. It's the first budget that I've heard grant applications several times. So thank you. It's certainly important that we get that money wherever we can to offset our costs. So thank you for looking into that. I recognize that that's extra work, and I'm glad that we have someone kind of focused on that now. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Antosky. Councilor Utley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to add my thanks to you as well. Great job. Never easy. Having experienced it a couple of times. I'd also like to thank staff, done a magnificent job this year under very trying conditions, and my fellow councillors and the members of the Finance Committee as well. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, but I'd like to add my thanks to the Council Committee. Oh, I got my, I'm losing my screen again. Can you still hear me? Oh, you can't.
We can hear you.
Sorry, I lost my. I want to thank the Council Committee. You know, you've all been involved heavily in the capital budget. You've all commented and made cuts and additions and spoke to it. But I behind the scenes, just for the viewing public, I know the mayor and the CAO work with the director of finance, and they have that's the part of the role that the mayor has, and they're preparing the budget in advance. That's actually made it easy for me as chair and for the rest of the council. Really, a lot of that legwork's been done inside. So thank you all. Chris, did you have a comment?
Yes,
No.
through the chair, I just wanted to remind the Estimates Committee that this meeting that we had scheduled on Wednesday for the Estimates Committee will be canceled since we approved the budget tonight.
Thank you. Thank you. And be safe. Well, we only had 7. Oh, Mayor, Mr. Mayor, did I see your hand up? Oh, you're muted, sir.
Just giving you a real thumbs up, Councilor
okay.
Carpenter.
Thank you.
I'll reserve my final comments until we finish the operating budget.
Yeah, the hard part yet to come. That's correct. Okay, thank you. But be safe. We had low numbers today and low numbers yesterday, and we've got 4 long-term care homes vaccinated, so we're on the right